you can't breathe. I mean, you can't even make yourself heard. Get it off me.
A voice that shaped generations. A legacy carved into the heart of nature. And now, at 99, David Attenborough's latest message is bringing audiences to tears. For over 7 decades, he's led us through the wildest corners of Earth. But Ocean, with David Attenborough, is more than a documentary. It's a powerful warning and perhaps his final goodbye. Why is this film striking such a deep chord? How did a once traditional narrator become a bold voice for environmental justice? Let's uncover the emotional impact and evolving legacy of a man the world may soon lose. The unshakable legacy of a storyteller. It's impossible to talk about nature documentaries without mentioning David Attenborough. For decades, his calm, iconic voice has defined how we experience the natural world, from rainforests to coral reefs to remote ice caps. His career began in the 1950s at the BBC, where he helped shape the early format of televised natural history. With programs like Zoo Quest, he introduced global audiences to creatures and cultures they'd never seen before. But it wasn't until the late 1970s, with the groundbreaking Life on Earth, that his influence truly crystallized.
Suddenly, you moved into a new world. You were flying alongside fish, which was an extraordinary experience.
Since then, series like The Blue Planet, Planet Earth, and Dynasties have become cultural landmarks. Attenborough wasn't just narrating nature, he was shaping how people felt about it. His storytelling wasn't loud or dramatic. It was observant, poetic, and filled with awe. He gave people a reason to care about disappearing species and collapsing ecosystems. He made nature feel intimate. Across the decades, his achievements piled up: knighthoods, Emmys, BAFTAs, honorary degrees, and even species named in his honor. But more than awards, it was trust that he earned. Viewers believed him. He wasn't a celebrity chasing headlines. He was a lifelong educator committed to telling the Earth story with integrity and clarity. Today, children, parents, and grandparents all know his voice. He has bridged generations, bringing the wild into our homes and into our hearts. But no legacy is without flaw. And even a man as revered as Attenborough has had to face the consequences of his words. What happened next nearly shattered that legacy and forced the world to question the man behind the message. A controversial past resurfaces. David Attenborough's long career hasn't been without controversy. In 2013, he made statements that many considered deeply problematic. During an interview, he remarked that Africa had too many people and too little land, and questioned the logic of sending flour to famine-stricken Ethiopia, calling it barmy. Critics accused him of promoting Malthusian ideas, suggesting that overpopulation in poor regions was a key driver of environmental degradation. In fact, Attenborough himself sparked the controversy with a 2013 remark, telling The Guardian, "What are all these famines in Ethiopia? What are they about? They are about too many people for too little land." While the comment faded from public discourse, it quietly resurfaced years later when A Life on Our Planet was released in 2020. Some critics linked the film to colonialist and eco-fascist undertones, even though it made no explicit reference to population control. One viral critique accused the documentary of romanticizing sanitized, green urban developments like those in Singapore, without acknowledging their environmental cost. Still, those familiar with Attenborough's work noted something important. The accusations didn't quite align with what he was saying in the film.
The awful thing is that it's hidden from you and from me and from most people.
In fact, A Life on Our Planet focused on restoring ecosystems, rewilding land, and reducing individual environmental impact, not blaming the global south. In his most recent documentary, Ocean, we see a clear evolution in his language. When highlighting the plight of Liberian fishermen whose waters have been devastated by foreign industrial trawlers, he uses the phrase modern colonialism. It's a strong, unflinching term, and a sharp departure from the man who, a decade ago, offered troubling views on famine relief. That single phrase marked a turning point. It acknowledged systems of inequality and exploitation that were once left out of the conversation. It also showed that even the most established voices can change. and that such change can come late in life but still matter. But nothing prepared audiences for the raw emotion of what would come next. When Attenborough returned to the sea, one last time. The emotional weight of the ocean. At 99, David Attenborough has released what could be his final major documentary, Ocean, with David Attenborough. But unlike his past projects, this one feels intimate, raw, and filled with a quiet urgency. Audiences have responded with an outpouring of emotion, with many leaving theaters in tears. The weight of the film lies not just in its message, but in who is delivering it. Attenborough's narration, slower and more contemplative than ever, feels like a goodbye. The opening scenes carry a subtle emotional shift. This isn't just another documentary, it's a farewell letter to the world he's spent his life protecting. The film shows ocean ecosystems collapsing under industrial pressure. In Liberia, local fishermen speak about the destruction of their way of life by distant, wealth-driven trawlers. And in a moment that stunned many, Attenborough calls this modern colonialism. As Attenborough later repeated in an interview promoting Ocean, he emphasized, "This is modern colonialism at sea." This was no longer quiet observation. It was political, urgent, and personal. And yet, Ocean isn't hopeless. It proposes that protecting just 1/3 of the oceans could restore marine biodiversity and help reverse climate damage. As Attenborough has long insisted, including in his recent conservation appeals, if we save the sea, we save our world. Coral reefs could return. Fish populations could rebound.
And I can only hope that people who see it will recognize that something must be done before we destroy this great treasure.
Seagrass could absorb more carbon than even forests on land. But critics note, this solution, while inspiring, may be politically unrealistic without dismantling the global industries driving the crisis. Still, the emotional force of the film is undeniable. For many, it feels like watching a final message from a grandfather figure who has spent his life warning us and is now asking gently if we were listening. But before Ocean, there was another moment when Attenborough laid his soul bare, a cinematic confession that left audiences equally breathless. A Life on Our Planet. In 2020, at 94, Attenborough released A Life on Our Planet, a deeply personal documentary that looked back not just at the planet's decline, but his own role in documenting it. For the first time, the narrator became the subject, and the message was clear. The natural world is dying, and we are running out of time. The film used the framework of Attenborough's own life to mark Earth's unraveling. From lush jungles he once explored, now lost to logging, to coral reefs bleached beyond recognition, the contrast was heartbreaking. He spoke not as a scientist or filmmaker, but as a witness. Reflecting on his own lifetime of environmental change, Attenborough said in A Life on Our Planet, "After witnessing the decline of the natural world over my lifetime, I can only say that the future of humanity and nature depends on us now." More than just an elegy, A Life on Our Planet offered solutions. Eat less meat, rewild the land, invest in clean energy. The film emphasized hope, but it was urgent, personal, and direct. And it sparked intense debate. Some critics praised it for making rewilding and sustainability accessible to mass audiences. Others condemned it for lacking radical edge, saying it downplayed the systemic forces behind environmental collapse. One viral essay claimed it romanticized colonialism and offered shallow fixes, ignoring the exploitation at the heart of environmental decline. But despite the backlash, the film succeeded in something few others had, making the climate crisis feel human. It showed the cost of inaction, not in numbers but in stories, memories, and lived change. And it used Attenborough's age, honesty, and authority to reach people who otherwise tune out environmental messaging. And yet, through all of this, a darker question began to surface. What happens when that voice, so trusted, so clear, goes quiet forever? The uncertain future without him. At 99, David Attenborough stands on the edge of legacy and loss. His latest film, Ocean, may be his last major project, and audiences are beginning to realize We are about to lose more than just a narrator. We're losing a symbol. There is no heir to his voice, no one who blends science, humility, and mass appeal quite the same way. Others are rising, activists, biologists, filmmakers, but Attenborough's trust was built over 70 years. Replacing that is impossible. The emotional response to Ocean isn't just about climate grief. It's personal. Viewers are mourning the end of an era. The final chapter of a man who gave everything to understanding, protecting, and loving the Earth. And that grief is real. Because his absence will leave a void, not just in storytelling, but in public trust. Still, he never claimed to have all the answers. His role was never to lead revolutions, but to show what was at stake, to remind us what was beautiful, and now it's up to others, scientists, movements, communities, to carry the flame. And perhaps, that's the greatest message of all. David Attenborough has spent nearly a century showing us the beauty of life on Earth. But now, it's up to us to protect it. His latest film may be a final bow, but it's also a baton, passed to those who care enough to keep fighting. Will we rise to the challenge? If this moved you, don't let the message end here. Like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that go deeper than headlines. And don't miss our next video, The Truth About Jane Goodall's Secret Battle, another intimate look at a living legend still fighting for the future of our planet. Let's keep their voices alive by making sure the world finally listens.